before we start, we're going to start out strong. Hit 'em. I just wanted to point out that VHS Mixtapes is officially announced for an October release on Shudder, which is great news because I followed this franchise from the beginning, and I love that now we are an annual release thanks to Shudder. I mean, we'd get a few years between the first 3 installments, but ever since Shudder, we're getting one every year. We got Halloween last year, which I've rewatched quite a myriad of times, and I quite enjoy. So this is just nothing but good news. Now, Mixtapes is supposed to go in the SCP Foundation route, so cryptids and glitching and nunchucks. I just figured I'd start off this episode with some good news for the horror fans out there. But let's get to the video. So this video, though late, is one that I enjoy doing because it's my top 5 most anticipated horror movies of the year. Sometimes I'll do top 5 non-horror on the side, but I don't feel like doing it for this month. We are getting to the spooky season, so we're just going to stay spooky. I'm not only going to give you top 5 of my most anticipated horror movies, but I'm also going to gift to you one movie today that maybe you have not heard of. I got a pretty chunky list of movies that I think, and a show, that I think you guys may not have heard of. Some you probably have, but I did some digging, and I watched some trailers, and I researched some dates, and I realized that there are a myriad of films that deserve an audience, that look, at the very least, like they deserve an audience. So after I give you my top 5, I'm going to give you a good chunk of movies to maybe put on your radar that aren't on my top 5, but that could be good. This month is the anniversary month for 2 fantastic horror movies. The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is getting an anniversary screening in theaters on the 18th, and this is the 10th year anniversary of Train to Busan, which is very fitting because we are getting a prequel to that film, which just so happens to be in my top 5 list that I'm about to give you. Stay on the lookout for those showtimes if you're interested and you just, like me, want to go and relive those experiences on the big screen, or you have friends who are blasphemous motherfuckers that haven't seen these films. Now's your time to fix that, or cut them off. Whatever. Now we're going to start from number 5 down, obviously one being my most anticipated out of these 5, but nonetheless, these are all juicy films. And number 5, we start out pretty strong. The first movie on this list is Hellcat. Now, this is a Shudder exclusive movie that I know tit, shit, or clit about, except that it takes place in the back of a van. Now, this is a road horror about a woman who mysteriously wakes up in the back of a camper van. She's locked inside, the car is moving, and she hears the driver's voice coming from a boombox right above her head, which is like already kind of a crazy setup, especially for a road horror where it's like on the road, but it's also a bottle house movie. I'm already intrigued. You had me at road horror, but now you've implemented this element of amnesia, and also, is this woman about to die in an hour, or is she going to turn into something? Which seems to be the mystery that the film is alluding to. Now, there would be no movie if she was just going to die, so it's pretty obvious that she is bitten by something infectious that is turning her into maybe a werecat lady. The movie's called Hellcat, so I'm just taking my guesses. This movie setup is pretty excellent. It looks very claustrophobic, and in classic Shudder fashion, it looks like a low-budget horror movie that knows how to use its time very wisely and its space very creatively. What the trailer's showing has me so fucking intrigued. And this could be one of the more creative movies of this year. I mean, honestly, the setup is fucking sick. It's probably not going to be longer than an hour and 11 minutes, but nonetheless, I am on board for this creep show ass ride. Really excited. This seems to be a first-time director too, so I'm always excited to see what new voices can do in horror. You know, movies like Dolly and Good Boy have recently really surprised me as of the last few months to a year. So this is just another one of those movies that is following that uphill trend of putting new directors in front of me who show out, and I'm just really excited for this one. So that is my number 5. And Hellcat will be coming out on Shudder August 14th, so 2 weeks from now. Also coming out on Shudder is my number 4 of my top 5, and that is The Last House. Now this is a Louis Leterrier, fuck. Now, he's no stranger to filmmaking. He's done movies like The Transporter and one of my personal favorites from him, Unleashed with Jet Li. But this is, from my recollection, his first real sort of detour into horror. And the movie, again, like Hellcat, presents you with questions more than answers. And I'm really liking these trailers. Like, you're actually, like, I'm going to show you a little bit of them, obviously, but for those that like to avoid trailers, I feel like you could easily watch these and still feel like you watched nothing. And that's not really a jab, trust me. The trailer to this is about a family who can't seem to get out of their own house. All the doors are completely locked from the outside. And they decide to just, I guess, fucking camp in their house until they can figure out what the hell is going on. And they're not the only house that this is happening to. This is happening to all the houses in the surrounding suburban area. But then it looks like time has passed, thousands of days, and now we are surviving, but something has finally decided to rear its ugly head and present itself. And just before we get to see what it is, the trailer cuts. And I'm such a big fan of that, because all the trailer is presenting the challenge of this family surviving in their home, not being able to go outside. And then the real crux, the real horror shows up. And then it cuts. And I'm like, yeah, dude, you got me hooked. That's all you had to do. That was a really good way of presenting the tension and the setup, and still trusting me to show up without showing me something super crazy. I think the tension was very palpable. It was well presented to me. The setup is already interesting. So that's actually on my number 4 spot because of the mystery that the trailer elicited. I don't know if it's aliens. I don't know if it's creatures. I don't know if it's cosmic. I don't know if it's fucking dinosaurs. Who knows? Regardless, it'd be funny if, like, this is also doing the suburban neighborhood thing. This is like Temu version of the End of Oak Street. Yeah, noting that his background is typically action. I wonder if this is going to be a more action-oriented horror film. Kind of like a 90s throwback, but we will not know until it comes out on the 14th. Now, my number 3 is one that I'm almost certain is my unseen scream for tonight. And that's Ice Cream Man, directed by Eli Roth, who, you know, did Hostel, has Green Inferno, of course, his most recent Thanksgiving. And for the most part, I'm an advocate of Quentin. Is that like film racism? You know, what's funny is if you were like raised in the early 2000s, it was Eli Roth, Quentin Tarantino, and Robert Rodriguez, who were always just like fucking scissoring in every trailer. It's like Eli Roth, Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez says this movie was, and so like now I fucking can't stop thinking about their names together. But Eli Roth, out of these three, is probably arguably just my favorite because he just kind of does whatever the fuck he wants. Granted, not all his films are great, but I really love the Hostel movies, particularly the first 2. We don't talk about 3. And I really enjoyed Thanksgiving. Can't wait for 2. So you know, what's funny is he showed a lot of restraint. You know, he's usually very over the top with the gore. He showed a lot of restraint for a slasher film. Nonetheless, it was still pretty brutal, but it was very like him going, I can do different kinds of horror. But this seems like we're going back to good old Eli, which is the absurdist gore in your face, making people barf into their purses kind of horror. And I'm okay with this. You've already seen the trailer. I'm sure you guys have seen the Red Band trailer. It looks like there's some weird demonic ice cream man that's possessing children using ice cream. And these kids are now butchering their families in brutally hilarious fucking ways that I just cannot wait to laugh at out loud in a theater with a bunch of other sickos who are just here for the gore. Again, this is just a movie for people who are there for the gore, but I am slightly intrigued on the potential of lore. Bars. So I think that this will be fun. The idea of a demonic ice cream man is silly as fuck, but this movie's clearly not going for anything other than silly. It looks like a rated R R.L. Stein movie, or Goosebumps Tale from Hell. So I'm excited for this. I think it'll be a good time. It'll be a good hour and a half of just carnage. And that is actually coming out this Friday, but it might be my unseen screen for tonight. So if it is, expect that review tomorrow or Wednesday. All right, now we're down to my 2. And if you guys have showed up and I've been talking to you, then you probably already know what my number 1 is, but we're just going to pretend we don't. My number 2 is an August 28th release, and that movie is Buddy. Now, I've shown Buddy a couple times in the past month for whatever fucking videos, so you're probably familiar with it if you've seen my videos, but it is a movie about a child and their friend surviving a kids show. And I still don't know a lot about this trailer, which is interesting. There's like the only 2 trailers we have are of a grown woman who plays Sophia Falcone in Penguin. Awesome actress. She is remembering the show that everyone else seems to have forgotten, and she's watching this tape. But the cheesers are of the tape, and it's crazy unicorn or donkey or whatever the fuck it is, doing his Barney thing, his Barney shtick, while ushering kids around the set. And every time, just before the trailer cuts, there's this off-putting image that gets flashed in front of you. I don't even know if it's a slasher. I don't know if it's a creature feature, but just the idea of a kid's show eliciting some kind of nostalgic fear as an adult, I feel is just not tapped into enough. At least not in theaters. So I'm excited for this, whether it is a straight up slasher or a creature feature or a movie dealing with deeper tones involving children and adults who like to play mascots to be around. I don't know. You know what I'm alluding to. If it's that, which I don't know, but it just feels like they're setting some kind of uncomfortable reality here. And again, another trailer, like the last 2, like the first 2 movies in this, that they really haven't shown anything. I guess that's the theme for August, is if you're releasing your movie, show nothing, just enough to intrigue your audience. And I think that that's the power of horror. Horror fans are going to show up no matter what. If what you're showing us in presentation looks good and it's eerie, you don't have to show us everything. Just get us there. And I think like these films so far will definitely get me there. Eli doesn't care. Hence his Red Band trailer. All right, and my last one, my number 1 most anticipated movie of this year, which is like of no fucking surprise, is Colony. It is in my top 5 of the year. So I'm excited. This comes out the 28th, same day as Buddy, so it's going to be a good day at the theater. I'm going to double feature those motherfuckers, unless they do early screeners, and of course, I'll do that. But there's not much to say here. Colony is directed and written by the same director and writer of Train to Busan. While Peninsula was a miss, Train to Busan is still an amazing movie that holds up, and easily one of the best zombie / infection films / Florida Man movies you will ever see in your life. So I'm very excited for this. The premise seems to be ground zero, patient zero, sort of the infection coming from a building, corporate building, that then spreads outward. But the way that they're treating the zombies in the trailer, it's giving a different vibe completely than Train to Busan. While they are still ravenous in nature, they're introducing other body horror elements to the trailer in Colony that are, I don't know, it just seems like they're doing something a little bit different. I'm telling you, Korean infection films are on another level. Like, even if you watch the show Kingdom, nothing has been on that level in terms of zombies, at least in the US. We just don't do zombies the way that Koreans do zombies, man. They just know how to really make them feel like when you know how we always say like, well, we can't wait for the apocalypse. I've trained all my life to kill zombies, right? Yeah, we say that about American zombies. I remember watching World War Z and going like thinking that was the hotness right there. That was like the new hotness of zombies. And then I watched Train to Busan several years after, and I went, oh, so you don't need PlayStation 3 graphics to make zombies look that terrifying. That is so cool. Colony is my number one, and it is my number 3 of the year. So I'm very excited. And I will absolutely do that review once it's up. I already know some of you have seen it because it's been released in other countries. All right, so now you know my top 5. That means that you will drop your top 5. Drop your type. Fucking hell. Drop your top 5 below in the comments. Tell me what horror movies you are most anticipating in the month of August. Top 3, top 5, whatever. I'd love to see I'd love to see the parallels in our list. That's always a fun part. Now, we're getting to the part of the video where I talk to you about movies or shows that I think didn't make it on my top 5, but are still interesting enough to mention. And I might put you onto something that could be on your top 5. So, without further ado, these are and these are in no particular order. I'm just gonna name them off, give you some visuals and a little bit of a synopsis, and tell you why I think they bang. My first one is called Big Baby. Now, this is a VOD release. I believe it comes out this Friday, August 7th. Now, this one annoyed me because I wrote a story about this that no one will ever see. It's not published. It's not a script that I got a chance to put out there. Nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, use me as an example. When you have an idea, shit that shit out as fast as you can and do something with it. Still, it's a cool premise that I'm happy to see realized, and it involves a writer who is working on a book. The trailer is bad shit crazy. The design of the killer of his book is a man with a knife and a baby mask. It's pretty cool. I mean, to be honest, it looks pretty... I always criticize slasher movies for not having creative masks or creative designs, you know, just kind of treated them as throwaway. I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, there's like a weird, uncanny Baby Valley thing going on here that I thought was cool. So, but the movie follows a writer who's writing a slasher, and he's having writer's block, but he's having a hard time finishing his slasher. But the killer comes to life, and the killer wants him to finish the story. And if he doesn't finish the story, then the people he loves in his life, including his girlfriend, die. And so he's trying to save his loved ones while simultaneously finding the calm and the inspiration to finish the story so the killer could stop killing. And, you know, it's a great premise. I'm not saying it because I thought of it and wrote a whole thing about it, but it looks really fun. It looks like it will have some good kills. And it is trying to do something different beyond just being, you know, a simple slasher. There is maybe some psychological elements in this film that we're exploring. There might be some multiversal things that we might be doing. Maybe we're breaking the fourth wall like a motherfucker in this. So maybe there's some kind of meta commentary on something. It's a slasher with a twist, and I will definitely be watching this on Friday. All right, so the next movie I think you should put on your list and watch out for is called Goliath. Now, this comes out on VOD next week, no, 2 weeks from now, on the 14th, and it involves a group of it's a bunch of documentarians who are hot on the heels of a cult. Now, this movie is told in the found footage style, but there is a change in aspect ratio here that obviously indicates that it's more of a period piece. Now, as things tend to go when you shove your finger up someone's ass. Now, as things tend to go whenever you are dealing with secret societies, when we take things too far and we dig too deep and we go against our instinct that tells us you should probably stop, because this is the moment in horror movies where people die. Because this is a horror movie, they don't have that point. They are well aware that they're being tracked, they're being watched, they're being filmed. And so our documentarians find themselves in a battle for their lives as this cult retaliates. And I mean, that's what I'm getting from the trailer. It's a very simple trailer. I love the look. It is very analog, and it reminds me a little bit of Hunting of Matthew Nichols, which was a movie that I really enjoyed this year, and I, funny enough, haven't forgotten about it. Like, it's I remember seeing it back in February, and the director reached out to me because he liked my review, and I was big hyped for that movie. So while I'm sure it's not going to hit the highs of that film, I think this is going to be something similar, and I am excited. I think it looks decent, a good at-home watch. So that one will be on my list. Not much to say outside of the analog look and the potential that could come from a story like this. So if you're a found footage geek and you like cults and secret societies like this guy, you'll like this movie, I'm sure. Now, the next movie is another VOD release. It's called Bury the Devil. Comes out August 21st. Jesus Christ. Is it because I said the D word? Fuck. Well, it's another VOD release that comes out August 21st. And this one is interesting in presentation. It is a demonic possession movie. It's a genre that, again, I say every time, it's a genre that I defend as much as I can, but the in the ratio of hit or misses, it's always practically always just a fucking miss. When it comes to demonic possession movies, they just don't do them well. They just don't do them right. And again, my favorite film of all time is The Exorcist. So any movie that even dabbles in demonic possession, I hold to extreme scrutiny. But no movie seems to capture the fear that I felt watching that film. No film ever seems to capture the grittiness. It's always cheesy with the big black eyes and the CG veins going up people's necks and the horrible ADR of a grown man's raspy voice coming out of an 11-year-old girl. Like, they just can't do it right. But nonetheless, this movie seems to be doing something different. It's about a hospice nurse who has to fend off the devil from one of her patients in a night shift, during a night shift. But it's all one shot. It's a one take. Obviously, if you've seen enough films, you know that just means that they very, very meticulously hide the cuts. But they are relatively long takes, anywhere from like 2 to 5 minute takes. And then the camera might move past a wall, and that's where the cut is hidden, right? And if it's a movie of extreme low lighting, like this one seems to be, then it's very easy to hide those cuts. I see the vision. To see a movie like this about a nurse protecting her patient or trying to save her patient from this thing that is obviously going to overpower her at every turn, I could see the vision of all the dynamic scares that could happen. As we see in demonic possession movies, in the last act, everything goes fucking crazy. Things start flying across the room. Beds start levitating. Creepy girls with long hairs over their faces is like a thing. So, but, I would imagine that maybe shooting around these very, very cliche expected tropes in a different way with a one take could add some kind of variable of difference and uniqueness to a movie of this subgenre of horror. So you're playing in the dark. That's another variable. Being able to shoot something in dark spaces and find the composition between the movement of the camera and then finding the composition of the space itself in which you could shoot and have lighting, present that in a way that doesn't look super staged, but still illuminates your sequence in a way that is visible. Like, all that stuff, I feel, is just gonna make for something really good if it comes off well. So I definitely am excited for this one. The next movie is called Bloodshine, and while it looks very low budget, I still think that there's something worth watching, and it's about a woman who seemingly is a fan of this film director, and she kidnaps him and keeps him captive in her apartment and makes him part of her rituals. Now, I don't know, this kind of gave me Audition vibes, if you've ever seen that J-horror. It's a great fucking movie. It's a classic. A lot of people can't stomach it. I don't think it's that bad. But nonetheless, it's a phenomenal movie, and it kind of gives me that vibe, but it's definitely leaning into the ritualistic cosmic element of it all. It's supposedly a very slow-burning movie about a film director who finds himself in a very shitty situation. If you look at the trailer, it's got people in hoods. It's got the sort of essence, this feel of like cosmic somethingness that's just kind of enveloping the themes of this story in the trailer. So, I'm like Hellcat sort of movie that takes place in one location. So this movie has this Midsummer meets Audition kind of vibe for it, to it. And I just think it's really interesting what you get into with a film director. A film director who, film directors, creatives as a whole, we all suffer with a lot of different feelings of isolation that kind of leaks out into your art. And then you've got this, what I'm assuming is a fan or maybe someone who is critiquing his work and wants to demonstrate. I mean, there's not a lot of things to take from the trailer, but you could go many different ways with this story. I think it's interesting that we chose a filmmaker to be the one that's captive. I do think that there's probably some kind of meta commentary here on the rituals, on the sort of perception of rituals in films, as opposed to what they are in real life. There's probably some kind of meta commentary on theology and belief systems, and creativity. I mean, there's a lot of things you could play with here. So this is definitely on my radar. I definitely will be watching it this month, and hopefully it fucking bangs. Now, the next movie is a theater release. It's called Hotspot. It's a August 21st release as well, and it's a cyberpunk psychological thriller that looks like it's Cyberpunk 2077 meets Possessor, the Brandon Cronenberg movie, and it's about a director who is chasing down a witch, a cyberpunk witch, a cyber witch, and who you can't call a witch, you can't call cyber, but you can call her a witch. It's something that I just thought was interesting to hear in the trailer. She gets very mad about being called a cyber witch. She's like, you can call me a witch, but you can't call me cyber. So the aesthetic of this is beautiful. It literally does look like it's stripped right out of Blade Runner and Cyberpunk 2077. It looks really stunning. Big saturated colors, extremely weird visuals. This is going to be a mindfuck of a movie that might lean into some psychological horror bits just as much as it will into body horror, because it does have elements of augmenting the human body, biology, but also the malleable nature of people when it comes to technology and information. So I mean, this one could be really great. There's just so many opportunities for this movie to dabble into like modern society and where we're headed, while also clinging on to really interesting visuals and maybe some good body horror, while also leaning into some cyber action. I don't know, but it definitely looks more leaning towards psychological horror, which is why I put it on the list, even though the trailer's pretty fast-paced. But if you like Possessor, I feel like you would like this, and I love Possessor, so I put it on the list. Now, my last recommendation for this list is called Penny Lane is Dead. Now, this is an Australian, what I assume is an extremist, violent slasher by the Australians. Now, this one comes out on Shudder August 28th, and it looks really gnarly. It follows a group of women who go out to the woods for a getaway. I believe it takes place in the 80s. And one of the ladies, brings her boyfriend over, and her boyfriend brings his friends over, and they accidentally kill one of the girls that they assault. And then it turns into basically an 80s version of You're Next. It looks really good. It looks really bloody. I know that the Australians, right? They get a lot of props for making like extremist horror, like violent horror. And I've never once really felt like any Australian movie has truly fucked me up. So I'm not saying this is gonna at all, but I am saying that in most recently, in the total sort of library of iconic Australian slashers and horror films, this one just looks like it's just going to be a fun time that has the potential to push some of this violence to spit on your grave levels. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but nonetheless, I dig the aesthetic. The story's simple enough. It looks like just a good old slasher group of final girls taking revenge on a couple of assholes for doing things they should not be doing. And it definitely has some bad guys that you can root against. So I'm looking forward to rooting against them and seeing them get their comeuppance. So yeah, that one is an Australian slasher. Looks pretty metal, looks pretty fun, looks pretty gory. Again, I tame my expectations when it comes to Australian horror, because for the most part, I've been extremely disappointed. The extreme nature of their violence that I should be seeing is just translates into extreme disappointment. Even movies like Talk to Me or Bring Her Back, I just get disappointed. Australia, really just pick up your game, dog. The last Australian slasher movie I saw was Beaten to Death. That sucked. That is my list for most anticipated horror movies of August, and also my list of movies I think you should watch out for that have potential to be absolutely great. Anyway, thank you guys for showing up and staying with me this long. I'm sure this is going to be a lengthy video. I appreciate every minute you give me and allow me to fill the void of our lives with the sound of my voice. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for showing up, showing support. Thank you to the regulars that always show up to these. And I guess I'll see you soon for another review. I'm excited to see Ice Cream Man tonight. Oh, fingers crossed that it's that movie. If you guys are also watching that Unseen Scream tonight, let me know. And as always, I will see you at the movies.